By the late 1970s, insurance companies seemed to be doing their best to kill off anything even remotely sporty. But there were plenty of options for those that cared to look for them, such as the Chevrolet Monza introduced in 1975, essentially a sportier version of the subcompact Vega. Priced from $3,600 to $4,000, it was $800 more than a Vega, and at 178 to 179 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase, and weighing 2,800 to 3,200 pounds, it was 4 inches longer and 180 pounds heavier when similarly equipped, meaning when it had the 2.3-liter inline-4 with 70 to 87 horsepower. But it could also be had with an 110 horsepower, 4.4-liter 267 V8, or for 1 year only in the 2+2, a 5.7-liter 350 with 125 horsepower. Only offered with the automatic, it was an 18-second car capable of nearly 120 miles an hour. More than 135,000 Monzas were sold for the year. And soon the other GM divisions would get their own versions, such as the Pontiac Sunbird of 1976. Prices would be down to $3,400 to start, and a bigger 2.5-liter inline-4 was available with 85 to 90 horsepower, tested at 23 miles per gallon. Equipped with a 5-speed, it was a high 19-second car that could do more than 100 miles an hour. Sales were just over 50,000. The Oldsmobile was initially called the Starfire and later the Forenza. Later versions could be had with a Chevy 5-liter 305 V8 with 145 horsepower, and when backed by a 4-speed could be a mid-16-second car. But sales would fall below 20,000, and prices ranged from $3,900 to $4,100. The similar Buick Skyhawk was $3,900 to $4,200 and sold $25,000 for 1978, with the Buick 3.8-liter 231 V6 having 105 to 115 horsepower. A 5-speed car was good for a high 17-second quarter mile and speeds near 110. By 1975, Chevrolet's Camaro was shifting more towards luxury packages such as the LT. It was 195 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase and 3,500 to 3,800 pounds. Prices started between $3,500 and $4,100. And power came from either a 4.1-liter 250 straight-six with 105 horsepower or a 5.7-liter 350 V8 with 145 to 155 horsepower. The top versions took just over 18 seconds to do the quarter mile and topped out around 115 miles an hour, with sales being just under 150,000. Ford's Mustang II ran until 1978. It was priced from $3,600 to $4,300 and sold nearly $200,000 its final year. Only 175 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase and 2,700 to 3,000 pounds. Engines included the 88-horsepower 2.3-liter inline-4, the 90-horsepower 2.8-liter V6, and the 133 to 139 horsepower 5-liter 302 V8. A King Cobra could exceed 105 miles an hour and took just over 17 seconds to do the quarter mile. The Pontiac Firebird got a facelift in 1977, and sales would be up to 85,000. Prices were $4,300 to $5,500, and it was 197 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase, weighing 3,400 to 3,600 pounds. Base engine was a 3.8-liter Buick V6 with 105 horsepower, and V8s included the 5-liter 301, 5.7-liter Chevy 350, 5.8-liter 354, and 6.6-liter 400, available with 135 to 200 horsepower for a 16-second quarter mile and a top speed near 120. The Chevrolet Corvette of 1975 cost $6,500 to $6,800. It was 185 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and weighed around 3,500 to 3,600 pounds. The 5.7-liter 350 V8 came in 165 to 205 horsepower tunes for a mid-15-second quarter mile, a top speed over 120, and sales just over 40,000. The Bricklin SV1 of 1975 and 76 had crept to over $10,000. It was 179 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase and 3,500 pounds. The 5.8-liter Ford 351 Windsor produced 175 horsepower, making for a high 16-second quarter mile and speeds near 110 miles an hour. In Britain, the Triumph TR7 arrived for 1975, 160 inches long on an 85-inch wheelbase, and 2,200 to 2,400 pounds, starting around $5,600 in the U.S. Powered by a 2-liter inline-4, horsepower ranged from 86 to 105, depending on the market, making it capable of up to 110 miles an hour. The TVR M series ran until 1979. The M3000 was 164 inches long on a 90-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,300 pounds. Power came from a Ford Essex V6 rated at 134 horsepower for a mid-16-second quarter mile, and taking it to speeds of nearly 125 miles an hour. The Reliant Scimitar SE6 was a shooting brake with a reduced price of around 1,700 pounds. It was 175 inches long on a 104-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,800 pounds. The Ford 3-liter Essex V6 produced 135 horsepower for a quarter mile under 17 seconds and speeds over 120 miles an hour. The Ford Capri Mark II sold in Europe from 1974 to 1978, arriving at U.S. Mercury dealers for 1976, where it started at $2,300, but would climb to as high as $4,000. It was 167 to 170 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,100 to 2,500 pounds. And engine options varied greatly, but included a 1.3, 1.6, or 2-liter inline-4, or a 2-liter, 2.3-liter, 2.8-liter, or 3-liter V6, with horsepower ranging from 54 to 136. A 3000 GT was a mid-16-second car with a top speed near 120, but wasn't offered in the U.S. In 1975, an MGB started around $4,300 and was 158 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,300 to 2,500 pounds. Most used a 1.8-liter with 62 to 83 horsepower, depending on the market. A European spec roadster did a quarter mile in under 19 seconds and did 100 miles an hour. But the GT Coupe could still be had with a Rover 3.5-liter V8 with 137 horsepower, making it nearly 2 seconds quicker and 25 miles an hour faster. Lotus introduced the Eclat in 1975, with prices typically between $15,000 and $18,000. It was 176 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase and under 2,300 pounds. The 2-liter dual overhead cam inline-4 produced 148 to 160 horsepower, making it a mid-15-second car with a top speed near 130. In 1977, the Morgan Plus 8 upgraded to a Rover 5-speed manual. It was 147 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and weighed about 2,100 pounds. The Rover 3.5-liter V8 produced 155 horsepower, allowing it to do a high 14-second quarter mile and exceed 120 miles an hour, with prices starting near $30,000. Bristol introduced the 412 in 1975. It was 195 inches long on a 114-inch wheelbase and weighed 3,800 pounds. The Chrysler 6.6-liter 400 cubic inch V8 was tuned to produce 264 horsepower, making the hefty two-seater a high 15-second car capable of near 140 miles an hour. The Aston Martin V8 of 1976 was 183 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase and weighed around 3,900 pounds. 5.3-liter 327 cubic inch engine was estimated to produce somewhere between 285 and 310 horsepower due to its 15-second quarter mile time and top speed of 150. The French Renault 17 continued through 1979, by which point it was nearly $8,000 in the U.S. It was 168 to 172 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,400 to 2,500 pounds. The 1.7-liter inline-4 had 89 to 97 horsepower, taking just over 18 seconds to do the quarter mile and exceeding 105 miles an hour. While the Alpine A110 continued through 1977, it was 152 inches long on an 83-inch wheelbase and 1,200 to 1,600 pounds. With either a 1,300 or 1,600 Renault 4, it had 87 to 109 horsepower, good for a quarter mile under 15 seconds, and speeds over 125 miles an hour. From Germany, the early Volkswagen Scirocco was 152 inches long on a 95-inch wheelbase and under 1,700 pounds, with prices typically being between $2,000 and $4,500. The 1100cc inline-4 produced 50 horsepower for a top speed near 90 and an 18-second quarter mile. The Opel Manta B of 1975 was 175 inches long on a 99-inch wheelbase and 2,000 to 2,200 pounds. Engines came in 1.2, 1.6, and 1.9 liter with 59 to 103 horsepower. A GTE was a mid-17-second car with a top speed over 110. Porsche's front-engine water-cooled 924 was 166 inches long on an 86-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,400 pounds, with a $9,400 base price. Its 2-liter inline-4 produced 123 horsepower for a 17-second quarter mile and a top speed of 125 miles an hour, while the Porsche 911 Carrera 3.0 was 169 inches long on a 96-inch wheelbase and 2,500 pounds. The Boxer 6 produced 197 horsepower for a high 14-second quarter mile and a top speed of 145, while costing between $38,000 and $48,000. But the 157 horsepower 2.7 liter could still be had for as low as $31,000. The Mercedes SL was offered in 280, 350, and 450, with prices starting around $20,000. It was 173 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase and weighed 3,300 to 3,500 pounds. Horsepower ranged from 180 to 222, and the 450 SL was a high 15-second car with a top speed over 130. BMW introduced the M1 in 1978. It was 172 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,900 pounds. Its 3.5-liter inline-6 made 274 horsepower for a high 13-second quarter mile and a top speed of nearly 165 miles an hour. Priced at only $115,000, just over 450 were made. In Italy, the early Fiat X19 was 151 inches long on an 87-inch wheelbase and weighed 1,900 pounds, priced from $3,800 to $5,500. Its 1.3-liter inline-4 produced 72 horsepower for a mid-18-second quarter mile and a top speed of over 105. The Lancia Monte Carlo was called the Scorpion in the U.S., where it started at $10,000. It was 150 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,300 pounds. The 2-liter dual overhead cam inline-4 produced 118 horsepower for a mid-16-second quarter mile and speeds over 120 miles an hour. The Alfa Romeo Spider was 162 inches long on an 89-inch wheelbase and 2,200 to 2,300 pounds. Engines included a 1.3, 1.6, or 2-liter with 88 to 129 horsepower for a low 16-second quarter mile and speeds near 120. The Maserati Merit cost 15,000 pounds in Europe, which is about half what it cost in the U.S. 171 inches long on a 102-inch wheelbase. Weight was 3,000 pounds. The 5-valve 3-liter V6 produced 180 to 217 horsepower for a high 14-second quarter mile and speeds around 155. The Dino GT4 was 170 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,900 pounds, with either a 2-liter or 3-liter V8 with 168 to 251 horsepower, with the 308 being capable of a sub-14-second quarter mile and a top speed near 155. Lamborghini Scirocco was made until 1979, with fewer than 800 produced. It was 169 inches long on a 97-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,800 pounds. The 3-liter V8 produced 261 horsepower, and the quarter mile took just over 14 seconds, and it could exceed 155 miles an hour. The Day Tomaso Longchamp cost $25,000 to $33,000, was 178 inches long on a 102-inch wheelbase, and 3,700 pounds, powered by a 5.8-liter Ford 351 Cleveland with 266 to 296 horsepower, making for a mid-15-second car capable of speeds over 150 miles an hour. Ferrari's 512 Berlinetta Boxer started at over $100,000, with more than 2,300 made, 173 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase, weighing 3,300 pounds. The 5-liter Flat 12 produced 355 horsepower for a mid-13-second quarter mile and speeds over 180 miles an hour. From Japan, Honda introduced the Prelude in 1978. It was 161 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase and weighed under 2,000 pounds. The 1.8-liter inline-4 produced 72 to 89 horsepower for a quarter mile under 18 seconds and a top speed over 100 miles an hour. And it was tested at 26 to 29 miles per gallon. Nissan reintroduced the Silvia in 1975, later coming to the U.S. as the Datsun 200SX. 163 to 170 inches long, depending on the market, on a 92-inch wheelbase, and weighing 2,200 to 2,400 pounds. Home market versions used a 1.8-liter, but export models got a bigger 2-liter with 92 to 97 horsepower, taking just over 18 seconds to do the quarter mile and reaching 105 miles an hour. The Mitsubishi Galant Lambda would be sold under many names, including Scorpion and Sapporo, as well as the Dodge Challenger, ranging from 174 to 180 inches long on a 100-inch wheelbase and weighing 2,300 to 2,800 pounds. Japanese models used a 1.6 or 2-liter with 74 to 97 horsepower, while the U.S. versions used a 2.6-liter with 93 horsepower. The quickest versions did a mid-18-second quarter mile and had a top speed near 110. The Isuzu 117 Coupe got its final facelift in 1977. It was 170 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,400 pounds. The 1.8-liter engine carried over with roughly 100 horsepower, although a bigger 2-liter would soon be added that was capable of 110 miles an hour and a quarter mile in under 18 seconds. The second-generation Toyota Celica appeared around the same time. Prices ranged from $3,100 to $4,400. Length was 170 inches on a 98-inch wheelbase and weight 2,300 pounds. Initially with a 2-liter inline-4 with 117 horsepower for a quarter mile around 18 seconds and a claimed top speed of 115. But soon both bigger and smaller engines would be added in various markets, including a 6-cylinder Supra version. Mazda's Savannah RX-3 ran until 1978, 160 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase, weighing 2,100 pounds. The 1.1-liter twin-rotor Wankel produced 123 horsepower for a quarter mile in the low 16s and a top speed over 110. By 1975, the Nissan Fairlady Z was up to the Datsun 280Z in the U.S., where prices were nearing $9,000 to start. It was 162 to 173 inches long on a 91-inch wheelbase, or as a 2+2, up to 185 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase, and 2,500 to 2,900 pounds. While home market versions still came with a 2-liter inline-6 with 128 gross horsepower, the 2.8-liter export versions produced 149 horsepower net for a low 16-second quarter mile and a top speed over 125. In most cases, performance was short of what the beginning of the decade saw, but mods were typically cheap and easy, and soon downsizing would allow more to be done with less. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm.